MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Breakout Player, and the Coach of the Division for the AFC South.
All right, MVP. Let's go. Trevor Lawrence, the prince who was promised, the prodigy himself. The flowing blonde hair, the beautiful throws. No, in all seriousness,
the football Jesus, some may say.
The football Jesus. Now, in all seriousness, no, easily the most talented player in the division. You can argue for a couple of different receivers and linemen and running backs, but at the end of the day, he is the most talented player at the most important position in this division. I think he's got a real market, I guess, as an MVP candidate on the betting markets, right? He's a pretty stark underdog.
Yeah.
I think he's plus 1,000 or something like that. I don't know. Some big long odds. But I think he has that type of talent. You saw down the stretch, I think it was after week 8 or 9, the last 10 games of the year, he was the best statistical quarterback in football. He was that guy. He was second in pass rating, first in touchdowns, second in yards per game. He was that guy down the stretch.
Yep. That's
who Trevor Lawrence is. That's who I think he will be this year, MVP, T-Lock.
It makes sense, and we've seen Jacksonville without him. I think a lot has to be said for the way he was able to turn things around there. Of course, the coaching change was huge as well, and that played a big part. But having the right guy at quarterback to be a leader and lead your team through something like that, and be able to make a franchise that was not even slightly competitive and take them to the playoffs and really compete with Mahomes for 4 quarters, that's impressive.
Right. It gives you this, having that guy at the helm gives the rest of the building, you can kind of take a deep breath. You're like, okay, we got that
we're
guy.
Okay.
We got
we're
that
okay.
guy. No matter what happens, we have the guy in the room that we can lean on, that we can trust. We know he's going to be that guy, and it also gives you a little bit of clarity in your locker room and in your building. It's hey, this is the guy. You either rise to his standard, you either help him win, you either help this team, support him, or you leave. That's it.
Yeah.
That's you. Those are your only options, because
Exactly.
that's our guy.
Exactly.
All right, Offensive Player of the Year. Who I think is going to be his number one weapon this year, Calvin Ridley, coming off that suspension for gambling. He has looked crisp. His route running is fantastic. The speed in and out of cuts. He might be the best route runner in football.
Yeah.
It's a very short list. Him, Amari Cooper, Justin Jefferson's up there now, but he is dynamic route running, and then after the catch, fantastic. Calvin Ridley is going to be a beast this year. It would not surprise me in the slightest if he comes out 1,700 yards, 14 touchdowns, that type of year where I'm talking top 2 or 3 receivers in football.
Yeah, I would bet on Calvin Ridley. I'll put my money on Calvin Ridley for sure.
Would you bet on Calvin Ridley?
I would bet on Calvin Ridley, yeah.
Would Calvin Ridley bet on Calvin Ridley?
Yeah, I think he probably would. He might. But either way, I think, you need your receiver to go with your elite quarterback, right?
Yeah.
We've seen it time and time again. Look at Jamar Chase, look at Joe Burrow. These are things that propel you in this league.
Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen.
Exactly.
Tyreek Hill when Mahomes was a little bit younger.
Yeah, every quarterback kind of has their guy. even Ben had AB for a while, too, in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So, you usually have that fantastic receiver to complement the elite quarterback, and I think that's a necessity in today's game, especially we've talked about. Offensive coaching has grown to such an importance because offensive production has become so high.
Yeah.
That's what you need to win in this league. So Offensive Player of the Year makes a lot of sense.
I think it also, we talked about this with Jackson Smith and Jigba, the rookie going into Seattle, right? How he, not only is he very good and he will be productive, his game layers well with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, right? Lockett's more down the field, same with Metcalf.
Yeah.
A little more possession, gadget guy. You needed a technician in the middle of the field in terms of route running, slot production. Same thing in Jacksonville in terms of Zay Jones, a little bit more physical, going to make the jump ball plays more often. Christian Kirk is more of a deep threat. And there's Calvin Ridley, who can go deep, but is also more of that precision, surgical guy, going to get open more times than
You need
not.
that. You need that.
It layers well. Defensive Player of the Year. There's not a ton of defensive talent in this division. You can look at a guy like Josh Allen in Jacksonville. A couple of edge rushers in Tennessee. I think they work well together, but they're not necessarily standout players. I think Shaq Leonard, the middle linebacker for Indianapolis, is the best singular player defensively in the division. Tackle machine, turnover machine, long arms, can defend the pass, active enough sideline to sideline to make a ton of tackles.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of a young Bobby Wagner, but longer and a little bit more active in terms of pass coverage. So Shaq Leonard's the real deal up the middle. Again, not a super impactful position, but he does anchor that defense, and if he's on, the defense has the potential to be top 12 to 15. If not, they're a not very good defense.
Yeah,
so.
and that, like you were saying, when your linebacking core can help you out in pass protection like that, that is huge for your secondary.
Yeah, right. Pass defense. Yeah.
Yeah, and being able to not just have to rely on your safeties and DBs to do all the work. When you can kind of push some of that to the linebackers.
It's almost like a safety, but like lower in the middle of the field. You know? Like
100%.
Luke Kuechly was a lot better in pass coverage than people think.
Right, but he can also step up, fill a gap, and just absolutely crush a running back too.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, it's good mix of both.
Yeah.
All right, breakout player of the year. Now this is a rookie. And I think you need to temper in terms of breakout, but Anthony Richardson, right? I don't think he's going to break out in terms of being a top 10, even top 15 quarterback. But I think what you are going to see talent-wise and the wow factor-wise with Anthony Richardson is going to be the reason he quote-unquote breaks out. A lot like Josh Allen's rookie year. Not very efficient, a little bit raw, unrefined, but there's going to be 4 or 5 plays a game where it's like, that doesn't look like anything else I've seen on the planet, right? Like where he's going to throw a ball 65 yards or he's going to take off and beat DBs down the field, right? Just like unbelievable speed, or he'll put his shoulder through a safety, right? Mm-hmm. So he's going to do things on the field that you just can't explain. I think in that sense, he's going to break out in terms of, oh, we don't know 100%, but we know for sure that he's got the talent. Like, that is our guy moving forward. We'll die on that hill if he ends up not being able to be refined, but that's enough talent to last a lifetime. Like, he's going to be that guy. So I think that's why he'll be the breakout player of the year.
I mean, it's no shock that he is, insanely athletic. Right? We've known that for a long time. He has all the, like you said, raw talent. He has everything there. Now, if you can refine it, put it together, I think he can be a really, really good quarterback. He might have been the sleeper pick of the draft. I think that'll be really
It's either going to look like the best pick of all time, or it's going to be like the worst pick of all time.
Like the stupidest thing they've ever done.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see how it plays out. And I think it can end up being pretty good for the Colts. I think best case scenario, it's like a Kenny Pickett in his first year, right? Where you're like, we still need to see a little bit more.
At the start.
But like he maybe has a really good end of the season, maybe like the last 5-6 games tears. So
certainly possible. Let's go with Coach of the Year. I think going along with Anthony Richardson, his brilliant young head coach, Shane Steichen. Now, I know we only have them at about 5 wins. You could argue me into 6. But the turnaround in terms of the offensive scheme is, I think, going to be stark, right? I think you're going to see a huge difference with Anthony Richardson in terms of his delivery, his timing, his mechanics. I think Jonathan Taylor, if he ends up coming back to play, is going to be a big part of the offense. He's going to be happy. He's going to be productive. Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce are going to be a good 1-2 punch. Like, I think Steichen's going to be able to kind of tie. I feel like there's kind of like a bunch of ragtag parts here, and he's going to be able to kind of tie it all together, bring them all as a cohesive unit, and they're going to be a lot better on offense than people think. And the culture and the direction of the franchise, you're going to, by Thanksgiving, you're going to be like, oh, I'm not sure if they're great, but they're going in the right direction. Yeah. I think that's why he'll be Coach of the Year, Shane Steichen.
That's a big piece to have, too.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to compete. And in your division, you got Doug Peterson, Mike Vrabel.
Good, two good coaches, yeah. Like and D'Amico Ryans, again, young, looks like he could be a good coach.
We need to see something. Yeah. But, it's important to have a good coach in the NFL, let alone in this division. It's a division that hasn't been all that exciting in years past, but I think is starting to grow and grow more. So
depends how these young quarterbacks pan out, and C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson.
Exactly. I mean, for the betterment of football, I hope they're good.
I would agree. Let's run back through those. MVP, Trevor Lawrence. Offensive Player of the Year, Calvin Ridley. Shaq Leonard, Defensive Player of the Year. Breakout Player, Anthony Richardson. And Coach of the Year, his head coach, Shane Steichen.
Yeah, guys, stick around. On the other side